What's up, Hardly Typical Podcast family? We are glad that you are back with us to join us for another episode of this amazing podcast. As we always say, listen, we're not just building a podcast, we're building a community. So we want you to chime in the comments. We want you to chime in wherever you watch this or wherever you listen to it and let us know how you're enjoying this episode. But before we dive in, Dr. Lee, how is it going?
All is well. Hey, Hardly Typical family. I cannot complain.
All is well. Okay. You cannot or you won't.
I won't.
Because that's two different things. Listen, both are spiritual in their own way.
Gotcha.
So what's up at home? You know, can I say this before we get started? I really enjoyed your video of like how you prep all the food for the week.
Oh, yeah.
That seemed to have gotten a lot of views and a lot of responses. I was like, see, she owned one because ain't no way I'm doing that for my kids.
See, I'm trying to show
every time
the
I thought you was,
multifacetedness.
yeah, I was just amazed. I'm like, yeah, she better than me. But I've always said you're holier than me, and now you're a better parent than me too.
Here we go. See, listen, I'm just trying to keep them fed. The problem
I
is,
feed my kids too, but you're not meal prepping like that.
But see, your kids
every
are
time
older.
I thought you was done cutting up something, you baking.
No. It's more.
Donuts and
it's more.
I said, who make fresh muffin donuts? Fresh. Yeah. Make her own applesauce. Come on now, y'all. Hardly Typical, man. Give it up for Dr. Lee. She make her own applesauce. Ooh. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me. I'm doing okay. Thanks for having me. I was just enjoying listening to all the food prep that you're doing. Everything you're doing to keep it going with the food. And that's serious dedication right there. And a video on top of it. Yeah.
It's incredible. I'm telling you.
Absolutely.
I watched it like at least 100 of those views was me.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, wait. I was trying to figure out how she did all that stuff. But
that's serious. That's serious dedication right there.
Serious. Mom of the year right there.
I love it. And so looking at those numbers and then thinking about what it means to have so many people on hospice care means that we have some people that are living for a long time, but not necessarily at a high quality. It means that we have a lot of families who find themselves completely overwhelmed with so many people needing that level of care. And it's not cheap. So again, the implications are very, very far reaching as to have such a high number of people with that level of need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not getting any cheaper either with a lot of the decisions that are being made and a lot of services that are being eliminated for those who are part of the disability community. So I appreciate you saying that it is vast. And I also appreciate, the connection to chaplaincy. I spent maybe about 4 years as a hospice chaplain, so it resonates with me.
Yeah.
What you're saying about the level of care, end of life care, and those types of things for our elders, for those who are part of that statistic that Dr. Lee read. So thank you for that answer.
Absolutely. And you would be surprised, as many people as we have, we still find that majority of the families are still not prepared for it when it happens. Many of us know it's to come, but we're so hopeful. And I think our healthcare industry helps us to be hopeful too. We've technology and finding different ways to stay healthy, and different medications that are popping up everywhere. We have this, sorry to say, but unrealistic expectation to remain healthy until we're, 217. And, with that in mind, we're not prepared for when it pops up almost out of nowhere for us.
Yeah. Listen, you said something that I remember I struggled with greatly as a chaplain. You're talking about the unrealistic sort of perspective and as someone who's a chaplain and a pastor, can you talk about that from spiritual aspect? Like how do we prepare? Because you said many of them are not prepared, right? We all know we're going to age into disability. We're going to age into death.
Mm-hmm.
But why is it that so many of us are unprepared? And what is it that maybe the faith community can do as someone who's been a pastor, who's a chaplain, who's in close proximity to this population? What would your answer be?
That's an awesome question. I would personally say that first, we might have to come away from the idea that to prepare for death is the same thing as to kind of wish it upon yourself.
Mm,
And for many, it's is to if they accept the fact that here death is coming, they're saying God is not able to keep me alive. If they prepare for it, then that's the same thing as saying, okay, God, I'm ready right now. Go ahead and take me. And so
mm,
there's some misunderstanding, there's some just misapplication of faith, if you will, that says if I just keep ignoring it and keep praying, if I don't prepare for it and just keep believing God, then it won't happen to me. And even once they're on hospice, which, not many families do, but you want a family to understand that once you come to hospice, your attention changes from aggressive treatments
mhm.
to comfort care,
Right.
you know. And
Yeah.
so when that change happens, when you change from, okay, yeah, I want these aggressive treatments into I just need comfort while my body does what it does, there has to be something there to say, I'm accepting that this may not go. Listen, just over the last couple of years, there have been over a million people on hospice. Of that number, they're on hospice for 2.5 to 3 months. Tops. That's the average. Now there's some, of course, that go way above that number. But even with those numbers, still families are not understanding or still not accepting of the fact that once I start this journey, that it at any moment it could happen for me. And if we had families, I believe, being accepting of that fact, then we will be much more prepared. Now, as far as those of the faith, again, I think the issue is realizing that I can still maintain my faith and still be prepared. I can still believe God, but I can still be prepared for the worst that's going to happen. And right now, for much of my experience, I was a chaplain in the NICU for 2 years before becoming a hospice chaplain, and I would say that it's pretty consistent that families don't want to talk about end of life until it's too late. They
Mm,
don't want, by far and large, they don't want to talk about preparedness until it's the last and final hour. And even then, if there's any hope to reversing things, 1% hope, then they want to do that out of respect for their loved one, out of not wanting to carry the guilt after the loved one has passed. And say,
mm,
I was the reason. I was the reason that they passed. I should have chose differently. Maybe they could have done so. Maybe they could have, I don't want to belabor this, but even our physicians in healthcare, if they can find some of them, if they can find a reason to give a family hope to hang on, they will too.
mm,
Some of the hospice doctors will approach it differently and say, well, look, with that percentage, it's just not likely. So let's just prepare for it. And one of the best experiences is when you have a family that says, okay, I'm understanding, I'm accepting, let's prepare for it. And they're very accepting of a beautiful passing rather than let's keep it going, let's keep it going, let's keep it going when there's no quality of life.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
it doesn't have to be betrayal of faith. Again, I spent some time as a hospice chaplain, and I remember having to consult with families. And one of the things that I used to tell them was, Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, but Lazarus is still dead. We don't escape it. So even in the face of a potential miracle, I think what we're seeking, and I didn't want to get all theological, but this is
Yeah.
where my mind goes. I think sometimes what we're seeking and seeking miracles is to deify ourselves,
Yes. Yes.
is to somehow allow whatever we potentially believe God's power and authority to be to help us escape the realities of aging and disability and eventually death. And so I used to tell people, yeah, Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, but Lazarus is still dead.
Yeah.
Like he didn't get to live forever. And
Yeah.
it probably was horrible for him because he had to die twice. It's like
Right.
you brought
Yeah.
me back so I could do this again.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, just helping people understand that it's not an abandonment of faith. And I'll say this, and I don't know how much you know uh, about my story. I have a life limiting disease. I have stage 4 cancer that's inoperable and incurable, and I have been battling for 5 years. And if I
wow,
didn't tell people, they would otherwise not know because I look healthy. I still
yeah,
travel, do speaking engagements. But that's one of the things I talk about as well. I recently preached a sermon on suffering, and I talked about how Paul asked God to remove the thorn. And while we celebrate the end of that, we still have to live with the fact that Paul never got what he wanted. And if
Absolutely.
anybody was doing all the things that should have granted him access to some kind of supernatural power from God to remove something that he claims was causing him pain and was something that he didn't want to experience, it would have been Paul. But so I should just share with the congregation that, he never got what he wanted.
Yeah.
All he got from God was encouragement to continue on and what is the realities of life, and say, here's my grace, and I'm going to walk with you in it, but I'm not going to remove it. It's not a path to immortality. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
I didn't want to get all spiritual and theological, but when you said
Oh
that, I was
no.
just like, oh,
Yeah.
we have to have that conversation too.
Yeah, it's a little it's a little difficult to be able to even talk about the end of life journey and not get that way, especially for believers. I mean, you know, you kind of have to go into that, and that is a hard thing to accept. I did a teaching not long ago on having a but if not faith, talking about from, the Hebrew boys who said, my God is able and he will deliver us from you, but if not.
Right.
And talking about how, we can believe for God, but even if he doesn't do it, still keeping a really tight grip on the fact that God is still who he is, even if he doesn't change your circumstances or your situation, not letting your faith be contingent. And that's the kind of thing that, as a chaplain, I'm not so inclined to give to patients because that's not exactly my job there. But as a preacher and a pastor, it is. As a chaplain, however, dealing with those, it's just more of a, how can we get to the place where we can accept it emotionally? How can we get to the place where we're finding some kind of peace along this journey? And I think for some it comes. And when you see it, it's a beautiful thing. That when that peace comes of realizing my circumstances are not going to change. Hey, God is still good. My life has been good. I'm happy to be surrounded by family members or whatever the case may be, that there's still at some point a level of acceptance that, we're shooting for.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this, if we can sort of back up from the death conversation and talk about the aging piece, because we know oftentimes, unless there's some sort of accident or something, aging piece and entering into a life with limits, whether it's mobility challenges, whether it's cognitive limits, that's a real piece too. So what would you say are some of the unique needs that our elders with disabilities face that may often get overlooked by the faith community?
Oh man, loss of independence.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Now listen, I'm dealing with the population of people who are, from honestly, I would say probably the youngest is about 35 that I've dealt with, all the way to my oldest patient who is about 103. These are people who have lived with a certain level of independence for a long time. And so now the embarrassment, the loss of dignity they feel over somebody having to help them to the bathroom or change their diaper or, these kinds of challenges, I think the first thing they're hit with is, I've lost my independence. I need so many people to help me. I'm so dependent on people to cook for me, to change me, to help me walk, and I think I see probably most consistently in their eyes and hear in their conversation, just the kind of almost defeated kind of, attitude that they have where it's like, man, I've lost. I've lost what used to make me feel so strong. I've lost it. And yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah. So what would you say the role of the faith community is in helping that? Because I see that as a big one too. Loss of independence, the shame, but a lot of that is some of the, again, here I go, some of the theology that we taught people, especially in the West. We have created a culture of rugged independence.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so we are significantly challenged when we get older and start to have mobility challenges or,
Sure.
You said a loss of independence, because tied to that is the loss of self. So what would you say the faith community should do to help those elders who are aging in a disability deal with that lack of independence?
Well, I'm going to say this, and I know, for some people that's listening, they're probably going to be upset with me about this, but I'm going to say this. I believe that the church community, it's very important for that community part to be an emphasis, because as a community, and I mean that, I mean that in comparison, or really in contrast to building a building for us to gather, which can sometimes be different and almost anti-community. It could be almost kind of sectioning off, bringing people from several different communities, bless God, but then not really caring for the community in which it's planted.
Okay.
If we do have a community focus, then we do know the elders in our community. We know those in our community who have loss of independence. We know how to come alongside them. We know how to support them during that time. Sad to say it. And this is not every church. I mean it, but one of the first things I have to address with a patient coming onto hospice is, what church community are you a part of? And 9 times out of 10, even if they're a part, the best kind of participation that they may get from churches is somebody coming to visit sometimes, a few times, but not really having a community to lean on, not really having people to be there to help them do the things that they need to do. And that's whether they've been a part of that community for years. Somebody just this week told me they've been a part of their church community for 40 years, or they've not been a part of one for very long. There still is just such limitations on how much help is given to those in need. So I would really say as a faith community, we really have to focus on the community piece more than we do. Again, somebody's going to be upset, but more than we do on how do we pay the bills in the building. How can we take these resources out? How can we get out to make sure that the people out there that need them are able to receive them?
Yeah. Listen, we're all about upsetting people.
We don't mind.
And disrupting. Yeah, we don't mind. We like to disrupt toxic ideology, so don't be afraid to say something.
Sure, yeah.
We
like to bust it up. So that's why it's called Hardly Typical. We're talking about stuff that nobody else is willing to talk about.
Yeah.
And bursting some of them theological and religious bubbles and say, but I agree with you on the community piece, especially how you say, you didn't word it this way, but what I heard is a lot of the churches now are community churches.
Yes.
We build buildings and people drive in who have no attachment to the community
and go right back
and
home.
they leave.
That's right.
And the church has no attachment to the community. And so it doesn't know its elders that are struggling with loss of independence and, loss of dignity in their mind. So I agree 100%.
Even to the point when they say, hey, if you would just contact us, then we could do. But I've been there to contact. And as a chaplain, you're not just talking, Protestant Christians or, Pentecostal Christians. We're talking Catholic. We're talking all kinds, where there's still a very limited amount of resources that go out of the congregation or the building to those into the community to be able to help them. And especially with just this, to be able to just be there for them, to be able to be there with them. Yeah. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
A staple in some of those churches is the traditional sick and shut-in list. Even if they don't do the bulletins and the lists anymore, they still have like we're praying for you. And the intercessors are lifting you up. But we like to highlight here at the Hardly Typical community that some of those people aren't actually sick and shut in. They are sick and shut out.
Yes.
Because we aren't willing to accommodate them. We aren't willing to make things accessible for them. So I'm going to ask you a 2-part question, right? Because we also know that the church has so much good that we don't only want to talk about the bad too. But so my 2-part question is this: what have you seen that is shutting people out, and what is a remedy to that? Because we want to give you all on the ground, grab your pen and paper, talk to your pastor now.
Sure.
Hey, we can consider this. I heard this from a pastor. Listen, it's 2 pastors on here now. At this point, I'm just the interviewer, okay? They're the experts. So listen to them.
Listen, there's 3.
But
you got a pastor for your kid's school.
That's right.
Listen.
Okay.
What have you seen that is directly hindering the participation, the accessibility, the inclusion of people? And that goes throughout ages, because we also know that the cognitive challenges are coming younger and younger. We're now hearing about 35 and 40-year-olds who are getting diagnosed with dementia and cognitive challenges. But we also know that disabilities like Down syndrome, autism don't stop at 18. We typically make those kid disabilities. But we
That's
know
right.
here at the Hardly Typical Podcast, we know it goes past 18. So what
That's
are
right.
ways that we can make those accommodations? What is something you've seen in ways we are shutting people out? And what is a great way we can make those accommodations?
It's such a good question. And I hope you're going to be satisfied with this answer. I was thinking as you were saying it that I feel like the best way to address that question is to say that I think that the structure and systems, the usual structure and systems is the
My
thing
favorite.
that lends most to the shutting out, but it's also the thing that can most significantly help address the shutting out and change that is if we're not so married to this structure and systems that we have. The structure and systems that we have help us to be able to, gather the funds that we need. It helps us to be able to run the church business building as we see. It helps us to be able to do that. And it's not a small thing. You're right. It's an excellent thing to be able to have the church in your community as a resource. But I think, again, the systems and the structure sometimes keeps it from shuts out those who actually need it unless we're willing to take on the messiness of it, which means, and this is off the top of my head. So, this is definitely not aimed at anything, but
You're doing good. Keep talking. You're doing good.
We're willing to, if we're willing to press beyond the threat of being taken advantage of, because God forbid we give somebody money who could have got it for themselves, for instance. If we are willing to press beyond this notion of we cannot be taken advantage of, well, we already spent 12 hours over there with Mr. Johnson. What else can we do? He gonna have to. It's the idea that we don't want to be taken advantage of, so we are only going to do so much, and we're so acquainted and intimate with the limitations than we are with the actual person that, again, we're still shutting people out. And so I say that to say, I really truly believe that if we approached it like a community, this is family.
Yeah.
We have to lay it down to be able to be with family. We have to come to a place of, yes, this is going to come at some disadvantage to ourselves. Yes, this is going to come at some, my gosh, I'm ready to pull my hair out. If you're looking at, let me just give you this little example. If you're looking at a 79-year-old woman that's taking care of her 85-year-old husband, their children are, for whatever reason, not involved. Adults are not, for whatever reason, not involved. And they just have the two of them caring for each other. They've been a part of your ministry. They still watch online. They're still giving for all intent and purposes. These are people that need you to come alongside them. They don't at this point need your sermon as much as they do making sure somebody's there a few times a week to make sure they get what they need. That's the part that if the structures and systems would allow for that, if that's built into that more, not as an advertising tool, but as just a part of community and pulling people to, I really believe that the hands of the church, really, the arms of the church can be far reaching. The embrace can be much bigger if we look at it from the standpoint of this is our community and we can get out there to do that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That was so good.
Some churches more than others, some churches more than others are that. They do. They will come alongside you. But by far and large, I'm telling you, it's more of trying to keep up that building and that on-site ministry than it is getting out into the community.
Yeah. I think you're talking about a heart posture. I just saw a pastor on listen, do y'all scroll TikTok? Because I'm a TikTok scroller. I'm a TikTok scroller. So the way my algorithm is set up, Dr. Harwood, come on now. You got to get on there. The way my algorithm is set up, I get pastors, preachers, prayers, all kinds of stuff, funny stuff, But I often will see pastors and they are often rebuking their congregation. And one of them that I just saw today that is relevant to this conversation is a pastor who got up and was saying, hold on, it's all right. You think you the only one who's regretted doing something for somebody? We've given money to people and they went and joined another church. And the first thing I thought was, did you give for them to join or did you give to help, to have the heart and hands of Christ? What is our motive? It's kind of like, this is a lesson I teach my children even now. If you wouldn't do this without a thank you, don't do it, because you're doing it for the thank you, not because it's the right thing to do. So if your sister sneezes and you don't, and she doesn't say bless you and you don't say thank you, that's not authentically you. We're having those conversations. Who are you authentically? And guess what? You get to decide. You get to decide. I think a lot of our pastors and preachers and leaders haven't had those conversations. The conversations they are having is, what can bring us money? What can bring us people?
Yeah.
And
it's
people
not
who are about to
always
die, may not have as much value as this person
Absolutely.
or that person. Or so I love that answer because it rings true, but it's a hard truth. Please keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, it's not always, needing the money is not always malicious, but it does become, in some of these cases, it becomes this distraction. It becomes the thing that, it turns from a peripheral kind of need, if you will, into the primary need. And when it becomes the primary need, then everything else that should have been in that primary space gets crowded out. And it just kind of happens by nature, because to be honest, again, just at my opinion of it, in a ministry that truly does come to look after the community, especially those who are in need to this degree, I really believe we probably should be thinking of exhausting ourselves for the sake of that ministry. We should. And that's hard. I know that's hard. And I imagine anybody who's built up a ministry that has millions of dollars, hearing somebody say like, hey, you should be looking at exhausting yourself, exhausting your resources, is probably going, yeah, right. Please. Yeah. You know what I mean? And understandably so. But I really believe that it is as far as we can go. God, we're going on you. We're going in your name. Let's go. So
the discussion that y'all are both having as I'm listening is basically Luke 14, the parable of the banquet.
Break it down for us.
And I wrote about it. I won't talk about all of it, but you basically said what you said, Dr. Lee, about people who have perceived value. Jesus said, when you put on a banquet, don't invite your brother, your sister, all these people that you think can repay you. Yeah. Instead, invite the blind, the crippled, the lame, the poor, right? And then he goes on to tell a story about a banquet while he's at the banquet. And one of the things that I always highlight, it's in the book, and I highlight it when I teach pastors, is when Jesus tells the story, he says he sends the guy out to get all the people on the margins, and a large portion of those people were people with disabilities.
Yes.
But when the servant comes back, he says, I've done that, and there's still room for more.
Yes.
And what I tell pastors is our problem is we built the church backwards.
Yes.
The reason why we can't fit it into our budgets and our vision and even our theology is because we built it. And so I'm going to push back a little bit on saying that it's not malicious, because I think when you build something that requires your resources to be taken away from the community that it should be supporting, whether that was your intention in the beginning or not, it becomes malicious, because you have created a cycle of siphoning resources away from the folks that Jesus would have gave that money to.
I love it.
And that's why I would label it malicious. And maybe I'm just hard on the people. I've been a pastor for almost 25 years. And so I always say that one of the reasons why I do what I do and speak at disability conferences and other conferences, I speak about disability and mental health and those things, is because when I was going to them, I was the only pastor that was going. I'm like, where are all the pastors? Got all these people who are volunteers who want to start some kind of ministry to do everything that you were saying, Darren, right? But they don't have any juice in the church. They don't make decisions. And so when I wrote the book, it was to get lay people to read it and say, this is a book I can give to my pastor. Because nothing, and you know this, Darren, nothing happens in the church that's not important to the pastor.
That's right. That's right.
And that's just facts. I know that as someone who's been a pastor.
That's right.
And some of the things that I was able to accomplish and some of the things that I probably still focus more on. But the reality is that when you're a good pastor and people follow you, everything that they do in the church, they do it because it's important to you. Yeah. And so what I'm trying to do is get pastors to refocus what's important and stop building the church backwards by creating systems that intentionally siphon resources.
Yes.
One of the I'll say this and I'll be done. I recently, or maybe a couple of years ago, I was talking to someone who was a part of a church that I was serving. And, things got a little bit tight because of the pandemic. And, most churches, especially small churches, started to suffer. And I told him that I am not comfortable with a certain percentage of our annual budget going to salaries. And I will take a pay cut or resign before I hurt the church. Because there's no reason why 65, 70% of what people give should go to salaries.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of the budget.
It's a lot.
And
That's
so,
pretty
but that's
standard,
what I'm
though.
saying. It is pretty standard, but as someone who came up in ministry and learned budgeting and learned all that stuff, I've never been comfortable with that, but that's always been the model for growing a church.
Yeah.
But it's like, again, you intentionally create systems and ideologies that will siphon the money and the resources and the volunteers, right? Not just the money, but the manpower away from what Jesus would have advocated for us to use that money and manpower on.
Absolutely.
And so at some point that does become malicious because that you're standing up and taking an offering and only 20% of it is going to doing actual ministry in the community.
Yeah.
You know that, right?
Yeah.
People, the pastors know that. And it's like, that's why I say malicious, but let me get off of my sanctified soapbox. I would make people mad. They're not going to listen to us no more, Doctor. But pastors, you're wrong.
Lord. Next
Get
thing
it together. Get your life right. I'm open. The doors of the church are open. Come to the altar.
Repent.
Repent. The altar is open.
Oh Lord. All right. So I like what you're saying. I love the perspective of what we can do, how we can change things, even touching on death. You're absolutely right. A lot of people don't want to talk about. But we also have a lot of our elders here. We also have a lot of people who are alive and well with disabilities. How can we honor them in hospice? How can we honor them in a long-term care facility? Is there something we can do as an individual? I may not have a community behind me. I may not have a ministry. Like Dr. Hardwick said, we're going to these disability conferences and speaking, and more times than not, it is volunteers. There may be a ministry leader here and there, but it's mostly volunteers and parents.
Parents.
How can we actually empower people to come alongside one another and support one another as the hands and feet of Jesus? We hear that all the time, right? We hear that all the time. But how can we empower somebody who hears this and says, listen, I don't have a big ministry. I don't have a big budget, but I understand what you're saying. And I feel that.
Sure.
And I now want to be that help.
Yeah. I would say it is super simple. The only way this could become complicated is if we complicated ourselves. I'm going to tell you the simplest way. I recently started calling, I didn't start it, but I started calling chaplaincy a ministry of presence. All we need is if we can just go sit with people. We're not talking about people who are Christians necessarily, who can understand why we're there or what we're doing. But do you know what it means for someone to just come sit with you? Even if I just got 15 minutes a week, if I can just come sit with you, if I could just come sit and hold your hand, play a song, brush your hair, have a conversation that I know you can't respond to, but I can just sit with you. There is nothing that is more, I don't think there's anything more effective for anybody within this community than just a ministry of presence. Whether they know you or not, just being there, just showing up regularly to be there as often as you can, I think is the biggest thing that we can do. It doesn't require much money. It doesn't require much resources. Any of these nursing homes would love to have somebody just come in and, oh, you'll sit with Mr. Jones. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It is really that simple. Just presence. You can even set a timer if you feel like, I don't want to be here forever. Set a timer and just sit there and watch how invaluable that is to someone. And you may never see on their faces or get from their voices that they really appreciate you being there. But one thing we have learned across healthcare is that even when a person is at some sort of disability, one of the things that they're able to hold on to is a sense of a presence, whether that's them hearing you or just feeling your presence. They're aware of a presence near them. And that's ministry in of itself.
Yeah, that's good. Some of my best memories were visiting with people when I was a chaplain, and even some of the ways that they added value to my life.
Absolutely.
For the ones who were able to speak. And I actually made a lot of elderly friends, a lot of them that I did funerals for. I got great stories I can tell you offline about some of those patients. You're right. Presence.
Yes.
Presence.
Yes. I mean, and that translates that also, it translates, it relates to those who are not necessarily on hospice, but, still have a disability. Somebody just saying with my presence, you mean something to me. You're worth it to me. There are a lot of nameless, faceless people who have given money. Thank God for them. But I would still say that the most valuable thing is just being able to be there, even if they're not facing death. They're facing a kind of sometimes conditions that make them feel isolated because people don't want to be around them or are scared or not knowing what to do or how to handle them, but just being there.
That's good.
It's a game changer. Seriously, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
That's
It
good.
really is.
Yeah. That's good.
So what's the point of this episode? We got to summarize this just a little bit because elders aren't our history. They're still living, growing, and deserving of dignity. With nearly 40% of adults over 65 living with some form of disability, it's time for faith communities to go beyond kind words and provide real support. Darren's insight reminds us that elder care is not just a family issue, it's a faith issue. So what does it mean to really honor elders in your life? Harley-typical family, I'm going to challenge you. This is your challenge. Check in, ask questions, make space. Whether it's a church program, a family gathering, or simply slowing down to listen. Let's commit to showing our elders that they are seen, valued, and loved. Darren, I have to say, this has been one of my favorite conversations. I have a deep love and respect for elders. My PhD dissertation was on elders and their wisdom, and I just loved listening to them and interviewing them. And I have to say that you have revived my love for them. It didn't die. It never died, but you've reignited it. The flame's even bigger now after this conversation. Thank you so much. I hope our community has taken some nugget from this, because we're all in this together and we all want to be stronger, wiser, and better. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yep. And so listen, Harley Typical family, as always, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends and your family and everyone you know. We are on Substack and all other platforms, including YouTube. So make sure that you check us out, and we will see you next episode.
Thanks for having me.